Welcome back. Let me ask you a question. Can you think of a history that was not written through the rearview mirror, that is in retrospect, and was not selective in terms of the people and the events that it's treated, and wasn't perspectival in interpreting said facts? I can't think of one. So let's think through those for a minute. First, retrospective. Let me get you to listen to a couple of sound bites from a genuine scholarly historian, David McCullough, and a popular historian, Tom Hanks. As you listen to this little clip, look for cues as to a modern definition of history and a modern technique of history.
What our desire at HBO was always to do was to bring David's work to life in a way that was going to constantly surprise people. You want the audience to experience this moment of discovery of our own history.
I'm here, Preston! You will suffer for this! I don't think any film that's been done about this all-important part of our story has ever been done with such authenticity.
The first time I came across the fact that John Adams defended the Boston Massacre soldiers and got them acquitted was in David McCullough's book, John Adams.
The people are crying. Kill them! Kill them! Knock them down!
If I had known that at any time I was a student of American history, the back of my little head would have blown off.
I don't think anyone who sees this film will think of the American Revolution and the founders in the same way again. It isn't just that they will have a better understanding of it, they will feel it.
Well, what'd you pick up? Did you notice Tom Hanks' mission, his desire to bring David's work to life in a way that would constantly surprise people? He said, we want the audience to experience this moment of discovery of their own history. Or how about the real historian McCullough's concerns that the film be done with such authenticity? I thought it was fun to notice Hank's comment that if I'd known that John Adams had defended the Boston Massacre soldiers and got them acquitted when I was a student, the back of my head would have blown off. McCullough's desire, I think both in writing the book and now collaborating with HBO and producing this movie, he said, it isn't just that the audience will have a better understanding, he's talking about the American Revolution, but that they will feel it. You see, McCullough says that his goal in writing the book, John Adams, was to teach the significance of one of the lessons of history, one of the lessons of life, that there's no such thing as a self-made man or woman. You know, McCullough initially set out to write a joint biography of John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, but he worried, as he explained to lecture audiences over the past few years, that he was concerned that Adams couldn't hold his own with Jefferson. But once he started doing his research, again now into these incidental sources, letters, correspondence, court cases and that, his concern shifted. Could Jefferson stand up to Adams? Well, McCullough's biography of Adams inevitably has a lot to say about Jefferson, but on virtually all points of comparison between the two, Jefferson comes in second. Well, so what's the point? What I want to suggest to you that when one's doing a history, there's inevitably selectivity. You see, in the HBO series, Only John Adams' son, John Quincy Adams, accompanies him to Europe. But in reality, Adams made 2 trips to Europe before the war ended. And John Quincy accompanied Adam on the first. On the second trip, Adams' 2 older sons accompanied him along with a secretary and a personal servant. Well, selectivity. Surely, one of the most blatant claims of selectivity is found in Deuteronomy 29:29, that reads, "The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law." You see, whether Moses in Deuteronomy or McCullough in the 20th, 21st century, historians have to be selective. Space is a factor, but so also is authorial intent. And authorial intent seems to focus on the people of God, the promise, the covenant relationship. So even military and political situations are most often treated from the perspective of the relationship between Israel and Yahweh. So selectivity is something to think about. And then there's the characteristic of stress. See, related to selectivity is what the author chooses to stress. Not everything is of equal importance to the purpose of the author. Much like John states in the very last lines of John's biography of Jesus, where he writes, you remember, now there are also many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world couldn't hold the books that would be written. There's so much more, there wouldn't be room. But what was selected for a purpose, namely, to stress the main issues. So, for example, the historical setting of Chronicles, namely the rebuilding of the temple, explains why there's greater stress on the temple than there is in Samuel Kings. As we get into Joshua, many of the events during the conquest, the stories associated with Jericho and Ai, stress the principle of obedience versus disobedience. So, selectivity and stress. We'll take a pause here, and when we get back, consider another characteristic, perspective. We'll see you in a bit.